Hi, I'm Steve Vest, and welcome to FPB's Meet the Candidates, Cable 10's series, which allows you to hear directly from the candidates their views on issues that are important to all of us. Today's guest is Erika Hancock, a candidate for state representative in Kentucky's 57th District. I'd like to thank you for coming by for a visit and to chat with us. I was going to start with a really difficult question, but I'm just going to ask you to tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, thank you, Steve. I appreciate the kindness.
Yeah.
I like to take the time to make sure I thank the plant board. This is a great event that you all put on to educate the voters and to get to know us a little bit better to make an informed decision in November, and I really appreciate it, or starting in October with early voting. So my name is Erika Hancock. I am the Democratic nominee for the state representative in the 57th District. The same seat that's capably held by our friend Derek Graham for the past 20 years. And I'm committed to delivering the same service-based leadership that he's provided. And many in the community may also remember Uncle Hank Hancock. Uncle Hank held the same seat from the mid-'70s to the mid-'90s and was Speaker Pro Tem. And between Derek and Uncle Hank, I know I have some really big shoes to fill. Mm-hmm. I was born in northern Kentucky. And growing up, life wasn't always easy. Like a lot of kids, my parents divorced when I was young. And like far too many families, we lost my grandparents to gun violence when I was 7. Thanks to family and friends and encouragement that told me that if I believed in myself and worked hard, I could overcome any obstacle and accomplish anything. So thanks to many late nights of studying and minimum wage jobs, I was able to attend college and was the first person in my family to graduate. I earned a degree from the University of Kentucky and met my future husband. Shortly after we married, Jeff and I moved back to Frankfort, which quickly became the place I think of as home. Mm-hmm. And over the last 20 years, I have built a successful business and started an amazing family. Jeff and I have 2 children. Polly is a junior at the University of Louisville, and Houston is a junior at Frankfort High School, and today is his actual birthday. So let's give a shout out to Houston's birthday.
Happy birthday. Happy birthday, Houston.
Happy birthday, Houston.
Yep. Houston, we have a problem.
That was actually said when he was born.
I bet.
And, thanks to Sally Hill Stumbo's faith and encouragement in me, I became one of the youngest State Farm agents ever hired. So that brings me to today.
Okay. Well, you said northern Kentucky, more specifically.
Taylor Mill, Covington area, which is all the same area.
Just south of Latonia. That's where my grandmother lives. So,
yeah, Latonia. That's right. Right up the hill from Latonia.
Yep. Yeah. And country music singer from Taylor Mill.
I was a young girl.
Yeah, she was on the cover of Kentucky Monthly just recently.
Yeah.
Oh, boy. I'll think of it when I'm not thinking about it. So, you said this first time the 57th District will be represented by someone other than Derek Graham since 2003. So what experience do you have that's prepared you for this seat?
The experience that I have as a small business owner and as a mother, the good news is the experience that I have and my opponent has is exactly the same. Mm-hmm. Neither of us have served in the legislative capacity. So I think what my experience in just dealing with the public on a daily basis and hearing the needs and wants and transforming that into products that I can provide through insurance, being in a business, you have to know the needs in order to fill the needs of the consumers in my agency. So that's what I do on a daily basis: is bring 2 differing perspectives together and be in front of that for the client.
Okay. Well, what is the biggest issue facing the 57th District, and could you talk about what makes up the 57th District? Well,
the 57th District is the west side of town, mostly. It does encompass downtown and a little bit of the east side, the country club precincts. Anything really right of the river. Peaks Mill area is the 56th, not 57th. But I think that, I've knocked on over 3,000 doors in the primary, so I've heard a lot about the needs of the constituents. And I think the cost of living raise for our state retirees is one that comes up regularly. Many state retirees live in our community, and these people have dedicated their professional lives to bettering the Commonwealth. And they haven't received a cost of living raise in over a decade. Mm-hmm. And anybody that's been to Kroger or Walmart knows that the prices are not the same as they were in 2014. So that is definitely a big priority for me.
Okay. Well, in addition to issues within the district, what are the major issues you see facing the Commonwealth?
I think the political divisiveness. I think the fact that they can't work together to move forward, and the constituents and the people of the Commonwealth are affected by that. The us versus them rhetoric to get reelected, the fact that if you have an opinion that quote unquote is on the other side is political suicide, instead of getting in there and actually doing the work for what's better for the Commonwealth. And that's where I want to bring some much needed civility back to the General Assembly. And that means working on issues that I may not agree with on some and may stand my ground on others, but it's just compromise and bringing back good old fashioned compromise to move the Commonwealth forward.
Okay. What are your legislative priorities?
My legislative priority clearly is the cost of living raise. I know it's not a budget year to start off with, but I definitely really am passionate about affordable childcare. That's the other thing I hear a lot out in the community is, I have a young family, 2 children in daycare that pays $1,600 a month in childcare.
Yeah.
That's wrong on all kinds of levels. We need these people in our workforce. We have a struggling workforce. We need to get people back to work. And young families can't do that if they're having to pay $1,600 a month in daycare,
right?
Or childcare, any type. So I definitely want to focus on ways to to work on getting affordable childcare for our younger families.
Okay. Can you think of any specific legislation or topic before the General Assembly that you believe the legislature should have passed in the past several years and didn't?
Oh, the 13th paycheck for sure.
Okay.
And I have actually. One of my main objectives, and campaigning takes a lot of time, but I'm building a network of experts in fields that can help me learn, because I'm not an expert. I'm not going to ever stand up there and say I'm an expert at anything related to retirement for state workers, but I'm going to put my team together, and I've been talking to them about that 13th paycheck. It should have passed. not that it was the ultimate fix, but it would have alleviated some much needed problems for our retirees. So getting back to that and figuring out why that didn't pass, which I have some ideas that we're talking about and discussing now, but I think definitely that was one that should have been passed.
Okay. Talking about the pension, Kentucky's underfunded pension system for state employees and public school teachers has been a significant and longstanding issue for the state. How would you propose to ensure that the state meets its commitments to its current retirees and those nearing retirement while also addressing the funding gap?
Well, it's accountability. It's making sure we don't get in the situation we were, what caused it, which is the rob Peter to pay Paul type of situation. And making sure that doesn't happen again. And again, building a team of experts that I can go to and say what's happening, keeping abreast of what's going on with the pension system. The pension's a promise. These people have dedicated their professional lives to bettering the Commonwealth, and they deserve a good retirement. And that's just being open and being available to the constituents and being able to listen and then take that up to the Capitol.
Okay. And what about cost of living adjustments?
Well, the trigger for that right now, I think the projection is like 2046 and it keeps changing. So focusing on figuring out a way to do the triggers differently, because the people that need it by the time it happens won't be here anymore.
Yeah.
So we need to put the General Assembly to the fire a little bit, and this was our issue, the General Assembly's issue, and why it happened, and we need to fix it.
Okay. Well, in Kentucky's public education system, how do you view the current curriculum standards, and is there anything that you would advocate to change?
Current curriculum standards, I don't know much about. I know what my children are learning. I do think that we need to definitely, Secretary Adams was championing a bill to put civics, just general civics, back in the school system. And I definitely think we need to embrace that and get children learning and getting involved in civics. The county clerk in our town, Jeff, does a great job getting high schoolers involved in the voting process. The more you get involved, the less fearful you are of it, and the more trust you have in it. So I definitely think civics would definitely be something.
Well, civics would probably help us on all levels.
A lot of levels,
yeah.
Yes.
So do you support the expansion of charter schools in Kentucky? Why or why not? And what measures would you put in place to ensure accountability and quality in charter schools? I
am absolutely against Amendment 2. Public education is the reason the 20th century was the American century. The demonizing of our public education system must stop. We need to let our teachers teach and treat them like the professionals that they are, and we need to remove politics out of our public education system. I mean, look, this is just a way for the current legislature to take our tax dollars and give it to for-profit charter schools that have no accountability, that don't follow any rules. And it's not good for the total in the community. It's not working in other states. It benefits the people that are already in the system with tax breaks.
Okay.
It is just not something that is good, I feel, for the community as a whole.
Well, the next question is specifically about Amendment 2. There are 2 constitutional amendments on the ballot this fall. Constitutional Amendment 2 would add a section to the Constitution allowing the General Assembly to pass laws that support non-public school students financially. How do you think allowing financial support for private and non-public school students will impact public schools in Kentucky, and do you see any risk of public schools losing funding as a result?
Well, yeah, there's states right now that public school systems have gone bankrupt and have had to close. These children have to be bused hours to their new schools. In rural Kentucky, there's not private schools. In eastern Kentucky, they don't have the options available like we do in Louisville and Lexington. This is just not good for the Commonwealth, and it's not good for the future. You know, our children's future depends on a good education, but our place in this world depends on a strong public education system.
Okay. But supporters of this amendment maintain that it expands educational choice. How would you ensure that this financial support is equitably distributed so that low-income families have equal access to private education opportunities?
Well, and I think this is the misnomer of what they're saying. That's not what's happening. I mean, the reality is it's giving the tax breaks to the people that are already in the system. I mean, I think the majority of who benefits from this are the people that are we already have school choice. I mean, they can choose to go to these schools. It's just, it doesn't work the way it looks on paper, and it's just bad for public education.
Okay. On tax policy, there's been an effort in the tax code changes to move towards a more of a consumption-based tax code, expanding sales tax and reducing individual income taxes. How would you ensure any changes do not disproportionately impact low and middle income residents?
Well, we need to talk about it first, because I think the reality is, you know, my opponent and myself will benefit from the income tax change for sure. But everyday people who especially haven't had a cost of living raise in the past decade, they're going to feel it at the gas pumps. They're going to feel it at the grocery store. I mean, and that's the reality of that increase. So I think that the triggers in place, make sure that I understand the triggers a little bit better and make sure that they are fair for our working families.
Okay. Do you see any lost revenue from switching?
Oh, of course. Yeah. I mean, when you lower an income tax, you've got to make it up somewhere else. And the sales taxes, you can't tax on the same level. Whereas if your income taxes is based on, you know, the higher income, lower income, and graded that way. So I feel like it's more efficient a way to bring in revenue to the state.
Okay. Well, on Constitutional Amendment 1, there are two amendments on the ballot, but this one would clarify voting rights in Kentucky by explicitly stating that only U.S. citizens can vote in the state. Why do you believe it's necessary, or do you believe it's necessary to prohibit non-citizens from voting in Kentucky's election when federal law already limits voting to U.S. citizens?
I don't think this amendment is necessary. I think this amendment is a political bargaining chip to get another amendment on the ballot. That's an automatic yes. I mean, I feel like that's part of the game that is played when you put 2 amendments on a ballot. It is not happening in the state of Kentucky, and it plays on the fears of what people are seeing on the news. And it's just not happening, and it's just another way to make people fear what's going on in the world today, and voting based on fear, not on actual facts.
Okay. Well, do you see any unintended legal or constitutional consequences arising from this amendment?
I don't think it changes anything. I don't think it's happening. Again, I think this is just another way to make people think it's happening,
okay,
and go down a rabbit hole of distrust for the government. And I think that that's part of what I want to get up there and change.
Okay.
Bringing back the civility and just dealing with facts, not fear.
Okay. Well, talking about civility, bipartisanship. How do you plan to work across party lines to address issues that are unique to Central Kentucky, particularly in areas where state-level decisions heavily impact our local economy and infrastructure?
Well, I mean, it's not going to be news that I'll probably be in the minority if I win. But I am much more than an R and a D behind my name. I'm already have made tons of contacts in the General Assembly on all sides of the aisle. There's a lot more good that goes on, and I wouldn't be working as hard as I am if I didn't think I'd be able to get things done up there. I just may not have my name on a lot of things, which I'm not in it for ego, Steve. I'm in it to do what's right for the Commonwealth and what's right for our district. So yeah, I'm not. Bipartisanship should be back to just being able to talk at one another, or talk less talking at one another and more talking to and listening to one another. And that's just me as a person and how I feel. Right. Personally.
Okay. How would you plan to foster collaboration between state, local government, and as it relates to Franklin County?
Well, I mean, just building those relationships.
Okay.
I mean, the legislative job is earning trust, being approachable, not in it for I got you moments, encourage the good, and stop just only playing the blame game. You know, we got here, we're here. Let's not worry about how we got here. Let's figure out how to move forward. That's how I run my business. That's how I run my life, and that's how I'll run myself in the General Assembly.
Okay.
And for lack of it, just get back to being friends again, which is. It happens more than it doesn't up there, and just getting involved and be more a part of the solution than part of the problem. Sure.
Well, and you talked a little bit earlier about, you know, you're in a unique position in that you've got several shoes to fill. Mm-hmm. Looking back at the history of the seat you're trying to take, and talk about the unique pressures that come with that.
Well, and unfortunately, I know most people know that Uncle Hank passed away in February. And my first visit when I decided to even think about doing this was to his living room. Yeah. And he and Ann and I sat in his living room, and he sat there and he hummed and hawed and thought, and he looked at me and he goes, "Have you watched it on TV?" And I go, "No." He goes, "Don't."
Okay.
But he did say, he said, "Erika," he said, we all want to get to the kitchen. We just have different ways of getting there. And I want to bring that back. I mean, yes, there are going to be differences of opinion on the other side of the aisle politically to get things done. But at the end of the day, we should be able to shake hands and be friends, because that's what it takes to make the Commonwealth better. Uncle Hank said it the best. He said, "People don't care what you know. They just want to know that you care." And I truly care about this community, and I know I'll be an effective leader at the Capitol.
You know, being that Frankfort is home to many historic sites, how would you work to preserve these sites while encouraging tourism and economic development in the district?
Well, just making sure that the funding is there. I mean, I think that definitely fighting for funding to keep those things that are special that make Frankfort such a special place. We definitely need to keep them up, and that would be funding and getting some income in for that.
Okay. Reproductive rights and health. Do you support maintaining or overturning the current restrictions on abortion access in Kentucky?
The current restriction, absolutely. I think that women need to have options for medical care. I've had several family friends that have been in medical issues and have had to have procedures done that would be prevented from the laws that have passed. Rape and incest, for sure. I mean, we need to make sure we're taking care of the trauma that these people have gone through, and their medical procedures to protect them, and I fully support that.
Okay. Do you support exemptions for abortion in cases of rape, incest, or protect the health of the mother? Why or why not?
I absolutely do. I mean, I've seen it firsthand with my friends. I mean, their lives were in danger. And it's not an easy decision, and it just doesn't need to be a decision that's made at the Capitol. It needs to be made between the medical staff, the woman, and her family.
Okay. Kentucky has one of the highest maternal mortality rates in the country. What policies would you support to improve maternal health and reduce pregnancy-related deaths?
There are a couple bills, the Momnibus bill that was last year that was passed. I would have definitely supported that. It was a great bipartisan bill about making sure that we have access to women for pre-existing conditions in the state. And I think more bills like that are coming down with birthing centers and options that are available that I would definitely support. Anything that supports our maternal mortality rates, I would definitely be a part of the solution there.
Okay. On social issues, Kentucky has been severely affected by the opioid crisis. What specific policies will you support to tackle substance abuse and expand access to addiction treatment centers and recovery services?
Well, I think we definitely need to start with education, and we need to help these families. I have friends that have dealt with this. I had a cousin that passed away from a drug overdose. We need to give families access to more. Once they turn a certain age, their hands are out of it, and they feel helpless. They can't help. I actually have some meetings with some groups that are championing just help for families with people with addiction, because the addict at that point can't make the decisions for themselves, but sometimes the family's hands are tied if they're over a certain age.
Right.
So I think that those need to be looked at, because we need to be able to help our most vulnerable, and it's a disease. It's not a bad thing. It's not a stigma. I mean, it is a disease, and we need to be treating it as such.
Okay. Well, what is your stance on criminal justice reform in Kentucky, and what specific policies would you support to reduce incarceration rates and promote rehabilitation?
Well, I think we need to, again, it comes down to proper funding for our criminal justice and trust the process of our law enforcement, and make sure we're supporting them with proper training and those type of things. And just educating the general public about right and wrong anymore. I mean, we're missing a lot of that in our communities, and just making sure that we take care of them. And just because somebody makes one mistake, we don't chalk them off and not try to help them get back into the real world, and give them job opportunities, and make sure that they have a way to better their lives after their incarceration.
Okay. Do you have any thoughts or ways to prevent homelessness and provide support to vulnerable populations?
Well, we start by not criminalizing it, and I know that was a bill that passed last year. Homelessness is probably one of the saddest. I mean, if you're driving down the road in your car and you look over and you see it. It is an issue, and I think it starts with mental health. Something else I want to champion is anything related to mental health. We need to change the stigma and help these people just function daily lives. I mean, being able to pay a bill, being able to pay their rent, being able to pay their utilities, go to the grocery and function. We need to start that in public education. We need to start that as early as the curriculum in schools. We got to get on the front end of it, because usually, quite often after the fact, once they're already homeless, it's so far gone that it's even a harder battle. So doing some research and seeing how they ended up. I think there was some I think Louisville started a study of how they ended up there.
Right.
But the reality is a lot of people are one paycheck away from not having that, or they're in a domestic violence situation that they can't get out of, and we don't even have a shelter. We need to start working locally for a shelter to help these people.
Right. Well, and there's also, low-income families, of course, but then also disabled veterans.
Of course. I mean, it's and you know what the thing is, this isn't a Republican or a Democrat issue. This is all of our issue. These are people in our community. These are sometimes moms, daughters, sons, and we should be definitely focusing on how to fix that.
Okay. Well, what makes you the best candidate?
I believe the fact that I am there to solve problems and not create problems makes me the best candidate. I'm approachable. I'm more of an encourager. I tend to focus on the things that are going good in a community versus the things that are going bad in a community. I think that's missing in the General Assembly.
Yeah.
I have even noticed being on the campaign trail, when I give somebody a compliment to encourage, it takes them back a little bit, instead of finding gotcha moments and things that you did wrong. I mean, look, getting up here is hard. Putting your name out there is hard. But bottom line is just treat each other with civility. We all have differences of opinion based on our experiences, and moving forward, not moving backward and placing blame. And I believe that that's what makes me the best candidate.
Okay. How can people learn more about you?
Well, you can go to the website, Erika. It's Erika for Kentucky, Erika for Kentucky. I am a State Farm agent here in town. We do have a Facebook, Erika Hancock for 57th State Representative. Just give me a call. I'll be more than happy to talk to anybody.
Okay. We're to that point where you get to look into the camera and say whatever it is you want to say.
Well,
ask
thank you.
people for their vote and answer any questions I didn't ask.
Okay, well, perfect. Well, first of all, again, thank you. I know that you've taken time out of your day to do this, and I really appreciate all the support that the plant board gives to the community, and especially things like this to inform our voters. But, being the state capital, we can get a little cynical about politicians and big promises. So I'm not going to sit here in the seat and make a lot of big promises, but I will make this commitment. I will be there for you. If you have a problem, you need something, you just want to complain, call me, text me, message me. I will listen, and I will do everything in my power to help. And I know that if we work together, great things are possible for Frankfort and all of Kentucky. If you need to reach me, we have a website at Erika for Kentucky. It's ERIKA, the number 4KY.com. You can reach me at my place of work at State Farm. I will be approachable and available, and I humbly ask for your vote. Thank you.
Well, Erika, thank you so much for coming by today. I know our viewers appreciate that as well. And to our viewers, I would like to remind you to get out and vote on Tuesday, November 5th, then tune into Channel 10 for the election results live from the county clerk's office. And thank you for joining us today.